Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&A, so let's go ahead and get this started. Alright, first question. So what protein powder do you use? Also, can someone with a lot of gastritis and acid reflux take it? Someone answered down there that I use Optimal Nutrition. That's true when I do protein powders. I don't use protein powders year round. I'm not currently using a protein powder because I'm eating a keto diet right now. And I'm eating a lot of meat and dairy. I have no problems getting at least 200 grams of protein a day, every single day, even while eating more than half of my calories from fat. It's not really a problem. So therefore, I don't need a protein powder. There's no benefit in me taking one in that case. And that's what people need to remember. With protein powders, they're a convenience item. There's nothing magical about protein. There's not one single shred of evidence to suggest that they help you gain muscle any faster than real food. They're just really not that critical, I would say, other than maybe certain bodybuilders on certain drugs in which they have a certain timing that's necessary of certain things. But in that case, I would almost say even a protein powder might not be ideal. Those guys might just want to IV infuse some direct amino acids or something, who knows. I mean, if they wanted to get as effective as possible, or they could just take pure amino acids, they wouldn't even necessarily need a protein if they're worried about some sort of rapid absorption to time with their crazy drug protocol. So for everyone else, it probably is a non-issue. Now, Optimal Nutrition, I picked them because they get really good consumer report reviews. They've got great lab reports, and I've never experienced any sort of lactose intolerant or protein farts or diarrhea or anything from them. Right, because I can actually be a little sensitive to excessive lactose up to a threshold, which would include some protein powders. But I've also gone through times, depending on which milk I drink, where I can drink a few glasses of milk a day. If I start trying to knock down a gallon, I get problems. But I have had protein powders that give me diarrhea. So I guess it depends on what filtration process they've gone through. Theirs seems to be pretty good for me when I've used it. It tastes good, and it seems to be low in contaminants, and that's a big deal. A lot of protein powders have too many heavy metals in them. So I mean, you might be getting a cheap protein, but you end up getting too much lead or too much arsenic or whatever in your diet if you're taking 8 scoops a day of it. So again, they're a luxury item. They're a convenience item. They're not necessary for you to even get maximum gains or maximum recovery, as long as you understand that they're a convenience item. I would rather eat food personally. I would rather eat a high protein food because I have a voracious appetite. So food is actually a better choice for someone like me, right? Because I like eating and I like actually having solid food in my stomach. All right, next question. Deficit snatch grip deadlift, good upper back? I don't really understand. Why would you need to do both? All right, look right there. I'm doing a 3-inch deficit. That's about as deep as you can really go and even maintain remotely decent biomechanics. Or you could do a normal deadlift with a snatch grip, right? The benefit of the snatch grip on the deadlift is that it creates a deficit, right? There's no other magical reason for your back why you do the snatch grip. It's not like it has any extra benefits. It's just that it creates a deficit and it makes it harder, allowing you to get a little deeper of an angle, just like you would on a deficit deadlift with a lighter weight. So you get more training effect with a lighter weight, right? That's it. So pick one or the other. You don't need to include both in the same exercise. I don't know why you would do that unless you had, I guess, insanely ape long, like ape arms and really, really short legs, maybe. But for most people, I don't see the point. I don't understand what you're trying to do. Look, you can get better back development and hamstring development and all of that just because you can get more training volume with a slightly longer range of motion with a lighter weight. You get more training volume and you get a similar training effect. That's it. That's the reason. All right. There's no need to include both. All right. Next question. Can you explain the social phenomenon of what I call the human pickup truck, where a guy starts working out and is still an early novice, and now he gets floods of messages from girls saying how they know a friend of hers is moving, so he should come help out without being paid? Yep. That's normal. Yeah, that happens, especially when you're a single guy. When you are a single guy. Or your girlfriend, if you're a guy in a relationship, I've had this happen a lot, will volunteer you when you lift to go help friends move, right? Any damsel in distress. For the girls, that is their way of showing off to the other girls that, hey, I got a strong man who can take care of me. It's a status thing for them. And it's also to show their girls that, look, even my man can take care of you. I got a man who's so good, he do man stuff for you too. He can take care of everybody. That's part of it. If it's a relationship, it's your girl showing you off. All right, and it's again status for her. If you're a single guy, in a way, it's a way of those women just acknowledging that, hey, you're a guy who works out, you're strong, you're useful. Okay, this is not a bad thing. This is not a bad thing. Again, this is a way for you to show off a little bit and do some manly stuff because women like that. All right. Believe it or not, women who aren't total weird, far goofball leftist feminists actually like seeing a guy do a little bit of work, a little bit sweaty, do some manly stuff and help. They actually like that. All right. This is not a bad thing. If you play your cards right, this can impress women. They like guys who are useful. They like guys who are masculine. All right. It's not a bad thing. It honestly is just traditional gender roles being defined. And this is women kind of saying, oh, this is a single guy, and they're probably checking you out. They're checking out the guys while they're lifting the stuff because, again, women like that. It's a display of you showing them that you're a manly man and them acknowledging that you're a manly man and that it's useful. Because that's what you better remember. At the end of the day, gender roles, including even sexuality, is very much about utility. It's very much about utility. Women are attracted to men who are more useful to them. Men are very utilitarian to women, and that can actually be part of just normal social and sexual attraction. It's not a bad thing at all. Don't look at it that way. You might get paid in other ways if you're lucky. All right, next question. I think you said 10 to 12 reps per set build almost as much muscle as 5 reps. Is that right? 10 reps are easier on the nervous system as well. By how much? Yeah, but they also create more fatigue. They also have their own recovery issues. Here's what I would say. I would never, ever tell someone to train exclusively 10 to 12 reps for long periods of time. I don't think that's a good idea. Maybe for your accessory work. If you're going to do that for bigger movements, you're only going to want to do it for at most like a 3-week block and a mesocycle, or you're going to want to do it as some form of concurrent periodization. The issues with recovery have to do with the fact that you're going to plateau more quickly if you're exclusively doing that rep range, sometimes on big exercises with no training variation as a non-novice lifter. This is why we have block periodization. This is why we have concurrent periodization, which is what I do right now, concurrent periodization. All right, you need to understand that. We're dealing with slightly different forms of recovery. Your recovery is not any better or worse on 10s versus 5s to the same RPE. It's just different. It taxes different systems slightly differently, but it takes just as long to recover from one versus the other, right? It takes just as long. It's just if you're dealing sometimes with more localized metabolic fatigue versus some peripheral nervous system fatigue. That's it. And balancing the two can be the best way to get your overall quickest gains, right? Basically, training volumes versus intensity is what it comes down to. All right, next question and last question of the week. I'm way late for the Q&A, but does the chest fly have any place in a strength and fitness routine? Anatomically, isn't a major purpose of the pec for adduction? Wouldn't only benching leave a lot of chest development on the table? Thanks, coach. I hope you get to this one. For a novice lifter, no, you're not leaving much on the table. But you're going to do more than just bench, right? What novice program has only the bench press for your chest? None. You have overhead pressing, pull-ups, chin-ups, dips, all sorts of other stuff tend to be included, right? Those have chest involvement. Now, for the novice, that doesn't matter. Like, in what world do you think someone in their first 6 months in the gym to maximize growth actually needs to work every function of a muscle? It's not a requirement to maximize growth. All right. That adduction at the top that you're thinking of contributes to really a fairly small amount of your pectoral fibers. And you're still working that on a lot of your chest exercises, right? You're still working that on a lot of your chest exercises, particularly more moderate with bench pressing, weighted dips, right? It's still being worked. So do they have a place, any exercise where you're worried about really getting that last bit of muscle fiber in your chest, does it have a place? Maybe for someone whose chest is an enormous weak link, but compared to something like their triceps and delts and everything else, maybe, but I'm going to say that's a pretty small minority of people. I'm going to go out on a limb and say most of you guys out there can probably build about as big of a chest as you're going to get with very large volumes of full range of motion pause benching, heavy weighted dips, overhead pressing, you know, your various presses. That's going to do it for most of you. And I'm not saying there won't be some exceptions, but what I'm going to say is that given the likelihood that you're actually going to need those, probably not. I'll go out on a limb and say that for the majority of you, if you can get to where you can do a nice pause bench with 300, you can overhead press 200, and you can do a weighted chin up from a dead hang with 100 pounds, odds are you're going to have pretty well developed chest. And if you need a bigger chest than that, then that's fine. You can start looking into other accessory movements. But realistically, something like a chest fly would probably be one of the last things I'd recommend. And I'm not saying I couldn't come up with a hypothetical person who I might have do a fly, but that would be a very, very rare individual, right? It'd be a very rare individual. Just dealing with risk versus reward on an exercise like that, I don't think it brings enough to the table to justify it for 99% of lifters. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.